Today's webinar includes presentations from representatives of the City of Aurora and Fountain, Colorado. They'll be talking about the different types of ag irrigation water leases that they have going on in the Arkansas River Basin. And we'll hear details about how each of these water leasing programs came about, as well as how they are structured and how they are benefiting the municipalities and partnering agricultural producers. This is the sixth webinar in a series of webinars hosted by the Ag Water Network, and these webinars are designed to increase the knowledge of ag water right holders and other interested stakeholders about water law, ag water leasing, and other water issues that affect ag producers in Colorado. So our speakers today are Don Jewell of Aurora and Mike Fink of Fountain. Before we begin, I'd like to go through some technical questions. If you have any, please email them to aaron@coloradocattle.org, or you can call the CCA office at 303-431-6422. We also, if you have any questions for the presenters, you can enter those in the box on the lower right side of your screen, or you can email aaron@coloradocattle.org. Today's webinar is being recorded, and we will post it on our website as soon as we can, along with highlights of the webinar. Some brief background before we get started on the presentations on the Ag Water Network. The Ag Water Network was created about 3 years ago out of concern over the increasing loss of irrigated ag land in Colorado, and population growth is driving this increased demand. In the past, much of the demand for more water has been met by cities through the process of buying and permanently drying irrigated farmland. If this trend continues, the State Water Plan estimates that 500,000 to 700,000 additional irrigated acres could be lost by the year 2050. So the Ag Water Network's mission is to help keep ag water connected with ag land, and we accomplish this through a variety of means, through outreach, meetings, workshops, webinars like today's, as well as collaboration with groups like the Colorado Ag Water Alliance, providing technical assistance to individual ag water right holders, and providing resources and tools like our lease screening tool, which is an online resource that allows ag water right holders to assess the suitability of their water right for leasing. So at this time, I would like to introduce our first speaker. Don Jewell is the South Platte Program Manager for the City of Aurora. Don has worked in water resources, focusing on the South Platte River for the Aurora Water Department since 2007, and she serves on the boards of the New Brantner Extension Ditch Company, the Brighton Ditch Company, and the Ditch and Reservoir Company Alliance, as well as formerly serving on the Platteville Irrigating and Milling Company Board. Don holds a Bachelor of Science in Land Use with an emphasis in Environment and Resources from Metro State University. So Don, I will now hand the presentation over to you.
Great, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And just to confirm, is everyone able to see that slide, Bill?
Yes.
Perfect.
No, actually, Dawn, I cannot see it.
Okay, let's try that one more time. How's that?
Yep, there we go.
All right, thank you very much. So thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it. What I'm going to be talking about today is what Aurora has looked at for agricultural leases. And as Phil mentioned, I'm the South Platte Program Manager, but I will be talking about our Arkansas Basin programs. So in order to talk about the history of what's happening with ag leasing in the city of Aurora, we first have to start off with a little bit of housekeeping to get everyone up to speed on how Aurora gets its water. So Aurora has water rights in 3 river basins. In the Arkansas River, down there you can see on the bottom right corner of your screen, the Lower Arkansas River Collection Area, and also towards the upper portion of the Arkansas River Basin, you'll see the Upper Arkansas River Collection Area. 25% of Aurora's water comes from that Arkansas Basin. There's another 25% that comes from the Colorado River Basin over there in green, and you'll see that Colorado River Collection Area. And then 50% of the city's water comes from the South Platte River Basin with our Upper South Platte River Collection Area, our Prairie Waters Collection Area, and something that's not even on this map, and that's our Lower South Platte River Collection Area, which goes from Denver up to Greeley. Aurora's Arkansas and Colorado supplies come through the Otero Pump Station, which is just outside Buena Vista, into the headwaters of the South Platte River. On our maps, you can see a dark purple line that goes from the Otero Pump Station just north of Buena Vista, pulls that water over towards Colorado Springs, and Aurora takes their water off the Home Stake Pipeline at the Spinney Mountain Reservoir. So that water then flows by gravity down to the city of Aurora. In order to use most of the water that we have in the lower Arkansas River, we do rely on exchanges, and we exchange that water up to the headwaters of the Arkansas River. Those exchanges are actually vital to our ag leasing that we have. We have two ag leasing programs in the lower reach of the Arkansas Basin, the Rocky Ford Highline Ditch Interruptible Supply Lease and the Rocky Ford Continued Farming Program. These programs both came about because of the drought, and it's important to know that these programs came about before the existence of the Prairie Water Pipeline. The Rocky Ford Highline Interruptible Supply Program was implemented to help Aurora recover from the drought, and it started in 2003. It took 18 months to finalize all of the agreements and contracts, so the first lease didn't actually take place until 2004. Under this program, farmers would take 10 acres out of production per share, and about 37% of the ditch company was involved in this project, which means that about 8,200 acres were fallowed during the 2 years of the program. So what that looks like, here you can see the Rocky Ford Highline ditch. The areas in dark blue, it says total dry up. These are the areas that were fallowed during 2004. The light blue was not fallowed. Those areas remained in production during 2004. So this is what it looks like when an entire ditch comes together, and you've got a portion of the ditch that's actually doing rotational fallowing under the ditch. In order to make this program work, Aurora had to put a lot of time and effort into engineering, legal analysis, GIS mapping, field studies, accounting, compliance, and structural improvements on the ditch and the farms. This work was done by a small team of city employees that are located at the Aurora Permanent Satellite Office, which is down in Rocky Ford. But it wasn't just Aurora that had to do work. The farmers in the program were not able to irrigate with any other sources, and they were required to control the weeds and prevent erosion on their farms during their year or years of fallowing. While they were able to select which fields they fallowed, the state engineer's office was the ultimate authority on whether it was sufficient lands for the program. And there were challenges with it too. Things like having to remove the entire production off the field. For example, if it's alfalfa, sometimes they had to chemically treat the fields those years in order to prevent the alfalfa from growing. But the rewards were good on both sides of the program, and the effort was worth it. The farmers had a guaranteed income. For their time, they were given $600 to $700 per acre of payment, and that included a lost production payment that continued after their following year, depending on if the chemical treatments prevented them from being able to have their full crops years later. They kept their ownership of their water. They saw improvements to the ditch, and farmers received over $10.6 million in income from the city of Aurora, not to mention $200,000 that the company received in cash or in structural improvements. For Aurora, the benefit was the use of a temporary supply to fill Aurora's depleted storage and recover from the drought. It was a successful emergency response. Our second program is the Rocky Ford Continued Farming Program. In 2005, a group of farmers approached Aurora with water rights for sale on the Rocky Ford Ditch. Now, Aurora had previously purchased shares in Rocky Ford Ditch and done revegetation on those lands. With this offer to Aurora of new water rights under the Rocky Ford Ditch came 2,810 acres of land associated with that water. Aurora committed to two options for the farmers: the typical buy and dry with a revegetation program, or a continued farming option and future revegetation. With the options available to the farmers, 1,930 acres of land were revegetated by the city of Aurora, and 880 acres of land stayed in agriculture with the continued farming option. Aurora entered into 10-year agreements with the farmers in the continued farming program in 2006. Under those contracts, Aurora committed to a one-time investment of up to $1,400 per acre to install water-conserving irrigation systems such as drip irrigation. Then, Aurora paid the farmers $50 per acre per year for that 10-year commitment. The amount of water from the shares was quantified through Water Court, and Aurora committed to providing 0.5 acre-feet per acre per year of augmentation water for the farmers to be able to use their wells on the land instead of the share water with that efficient irrigation system. The net usable amount of water per share for Aurora ended up being about 1.26 acre-feet per acre per year after subtracting out that 0.5 acre-foot per acre per year commitment. After purchasing the water rights, Aurora spent an additional $1.4 million in payments to the farmers, keeping them in agriculture under their well usage and augmentation. From the continued farming program, Aurora has received over 1,100 acre-feet of water per year from the shares they purchased without removing ag from the land. The contracts expired in 2006, and Aurora has entered into new contracts with the farmers with different terms and different agriculture. Well, agriculture has continued. I think I said 2016. Aurora continues to carry the burden of revegetation on the lands, so when the farmers no longer wish to use that farmland to continue farming, Aurora is required to revegetate those lands. This is a map showing you the Rocky Ford continued farming. So the green areas are the areas that the city has revegetated and put in native grasses. The yellow and red areas are areas which have been developed and no longer are in ag. And then the blue is the areas where we've been able to have the continued farming, and those areas are irrigated under wells. So that's a little bit of history of the ag leasing in Aurora. There were opportunities after the drought which afforded these programs coming online in the Arkansas River Basin. But at this time, Aurora has very limited opportunity to do new programs in the valley due to agreements it's made. The main opportunities that we really have to do new programs in the state of Colorado and find new solutions to water sharing are actually in the South Platte River Basin. Since the 2003 drought, Aurora has built the Prairie Waters Pipeline. That's a 37-mile pipeline from the Brighton area of Colorado back to Aurora's Binney treatment plant. This allows Aurora to reuse its wholly consumable water. So all of the water that Aurora has purchased previously and changed in water court, we're trying to reuse that in the most efficient way that we can to reduce our need for new supplies. Aurora has also started purchasing water in the South Platte River downstream of Denver, all the way up to Greeley, Colorado. The circumstances are different between the Arkansas Basin and the South Platte Basin where the Rocky Ford ditches are. There's a lot of development happening in this urban quarter, and there's a lot of urban sprawl into the agricultural lands. Lands which are going to be developed don't lend much opportunity to agricultural leasing, and that's one of the problems that we run into. So what we're looking for now in agricultural leasing is long-term viability and stability of yield at a reasonable cost. Aurora needs water in perpetuity. Short-term leasing is better for emergencies and catastrophes than long-term growth. And Aurora's planning horizon is 50 years at minimum, and growth is not stopping. People continue to move to Colorado, and they continue to need places to live. But every new person needs water, and they need food. Colorado's population is growing exponentially, so guaranteed water is a necessity. When looking at agricultural leases, Aurora has to be able to face its citizens with full transparency and say the benefit to the city is more than the cost for these projects. Spending $10.4 million over 3 years to have water for just those 3 years is not a long-term viable solution and would be difficult to pass the citizens' vote if it weren't for the crisis the city was in at the time. Never waste a good crisis, we always say. And that goes for farmers and municipal entities both. Ideas like the continued farming program in the Arkansas Valley, they have a lot of merit during crisis, but the circumstances have to be right and the burden must be shared by both the city and the sellers. There are a lot of roadblocks to agricultural leasing and alternative transfer methods. What we look for now are solutions to those roadblocks. Cities don't want to pay for everything necessary to be able to use the agricultural water, such as engineering and legal costs for water court, without any ownership or long-term guarantee that the city will be able to continue to use the water. Other challenges exist with the water that's getting changed for municipal use. Instead of flexible programs which allow the cities to lease the water back to agriculture after the change cases, cities are getting tied into stipulations and decrees which forbid us from using agricultural leasing after the cities have used the water for municipal use due to return flow obligations and concerns of expanded use under the ditch. The other large challenge is finding farmers who want to put money into their water rights and then deal with lawyers and engineers to formulate complicated agreements and obligations which will allow the farmer to lease his or her water to cities. This is forcing farmers to spend a lot of money up front and not seeing the monetary benefit from it for years and years. The other thing is Aurora doesn't go out and knock on doors for water purchases. Our water purchases come from people calling us, wanting to sell their water for one reason or another. And by the time they've called us, they're looking to see income and not obligations. There are success stories, though, of agricultural leasing in the South Platte. We've seen them, and we've seen what it takes. What it takes is cooperative efforts by ditch company shareholders coming together to invest in their water and to make the rights available for shared use on a long-term basis. Aurora has an open-door policy about creative solutions and partnerships. We are willing to discuss with any parties any long-term or permanent shared cost solutions to water scarcity and resource sharing to help facilitate continued agriculture and continued urban growth in the state of Colorado. We see that agriculture and growth have to live hand in hand as they feed into one another, literally. So as I said, we are open to ideas. I'm going to pass it over to Mike and let him take over from here. But if you think you have an idea to keep ag and growth going, Aurora is all ears, and I would appreciate you contacting me. Thank you.
Thanks, Dawn. So let me introduce Mike while Aaron is switching over to Mike's screen. Michael Fink is the water superintendent for the City of Fountain Water Utility. Prior to becoming superintendent, he served as the water resource engineer for the City of Fountain for 11 years. Fountain's water utility serves about 28,000 people and delivers about 4 million gallons of water daily. Mike also serves as the El Paso County's representative on the Arkansas River Basin Roundtable, and he currently holds professional engineering licenses in 9 states, including Colorado. He earned his undergraduate degree in civil engineering from Valparaiso University and his master's in civil engineering from Illinois Institute of Technology. Mike is a fellow in the National Society of Professional Engineers and a member of the American Society of Civil Engineers. So Mike, can you hear us okay? And are you ready to go ahead and give your presentation?
I'm ready. Do you see my screen?
We do.
We do.
Good. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Dawn. I am Mike Fink. I'm the water superintendent for the City of Fountain, Colorado, and this first screen kind of locates us. Fountain is a home rule city with a population of about 30,000 just south of Colorado Springs in El Paso County. Fountain is the gateway community for Fort Carson. The Fountain Water Utility serves about 24,000 of the Fountain residents. The electric utility goes beyond the city and serves about 46,000 residents of Fountain and the surrounding area. Today I'll speak about 2 topics. One is a lease of water rights from an agricultural source that is protected by a conservation easement to a group of municipal users, and the other is a pilot project implementing the House Bill 13-1248 rotational fallowing municipal lease alternative transfer mechanism. Fountain has been a participant in each of these examples for different reasons, and Fountain has realized wet water from each of these projects. So the first one I want to talk to you about is the Fenatucci Ranch Conservation Easement and Municipal Lease Project. Fountain, the municipality, and the Fountain Valley, the area, were settled as agricultural production farms in the mid to late 1800s. Most of the agricultural production depended upon irrigation, either from agricultural ditches, taking diversions from Fountain Creek, or from alluvial wells that were relatively shallow. The alluvium is variable in thickness, and the soil characteristics vary from cobbles to sand to silt and clay. Generally, the alluvium yield and the chemical composition of the alluvial water decrease in both volume and quality from north to south, with the water picking up mineral hardness and total dissolved solids content as you progress from the southern part of Colorado Springs into what is now Fountain. This is the location of the Fenatucci Ranch, between Colorado Springs to the north and Fountain to the south. In the early 2000s, the owners of the ranch incorporated a conservation easement to maintain this area's agricultural characteristics as the urbanization started to surround the Fenatucci property. The Pikes Peak Community Foundation established and maintained the conservation easement. The ranch is now a certified organic producer. The ranch was famous for giving Halloween pumpkins to school children in El Paso County, and that's still a major autumn attraction. In fact, every fall, Bristol Brewing bottles of Venatucci pumpkin ale in limited quantities. Probably too late to get on the purchase list for 2018. It's introduced in October. There were some very productive agricultural wells on this property, and after study, it was determined that the wells could produce more water than was necessary to keep the remainder of the Venatucci Ranch as a working agricultural entity. But the remainder was probably too small to be economically viable as a working farm. This area overlies the Widefield Aquifer, which is an alluvial aquifer governed by a court action known as the Widefield Aquifer Stipulation. Very productive in terms of volumetric water production and serves the communities in this area with groundwater of high quality. The other communities are the city of, other than the city of Fountain and the city of Colorado Springs, are the Security Water District and the Widefield Water District. So Security, Fountain, and Widefield negotiated a lease with the Pikes Peak Community Foundation for the annual removal of up to 1,300 acre-feet of water from the Venatucci Ranch. There were the wells that were in the ranch, and this is what we built out. That's a treatment and pumping building, and in the background is Pikes Peak, looking to the west. I was the project manager for this in 2006, 2007. GMS Engineering designed the project, and Glacier Construction was the general contractor. Production started in 2007. The Fountain has been a beneficiary for 8 years for the majority of the yield, and we operate the pumping station and the treatment system. Each of the three utilities was responsible for providing their own augmentation water and perfecting their own water rights to use these 4 wells, and each city finalized their court cases. This is one of the wells. It's remote from the unit itself, and the wells are all remotely operated. The city's payment to the Pikes Peak Community Foundation is about $200,000 annually for this lease. This has allowed the city to continue addressing and supplying growth while the southern delivery system was constructed. Fountain was a small part of the southern delivery system, which was a 56-mile treatment and transport project to bring water from the Pueblo Reservoir to El Paso County. It was spearheaded by the city of Colorado Springs. Fountain was about a 3% participant. It began delivering water to Fountain in April 2016. We ceased using the water from the Venatucci well field in the fall of 2015. So the city's use of this water in this sharing facility was to bridge a different source and the construction and operation time that it took to get that different source in place. So we had now the ability to use this as a redundant supply of water. I'll go on to our second ATM, which is the super ditch. And Fountain was supportive of the idea of rotational fallowing and leasing to the municipality for a long time. The Lower Arkansas Valley Water Conservancy District tried several times to accomplish this, and several of the agricultural canal companies changed their bylaws to accommodate this possibility. It went to court several times under the auspices of the Lower District and ran into kind of a court buzzsaw. They tried to file a substitute water supply plan and were objected, and enough objectors got in the way until 2013 when the Lower sponsored House Bill 13-1248, and it allowed up to 10 pilot programs for alternative transfer mechanisms. That did pass, and this is one of those 10, although I don't believe that others have started under this legislation. So this is a pilot project that is about halfway through a 10-year term. Fountain participates with a maximum delivery of 500 acre-feet per year. The CANAL actually delivers the water to the Pueblo Reservoir. The cost of Fountain for the raw water in the Pueblo Reservoir is $500 per acre-foot. And we bring the water through the Fountain Valley Authority conduit and through the Fountain Valley Authority treatment plant, which Fountain is an equity owner in, and that costs roughly $190 per acre-foot. So this is relatively expensive water for us. This is Fountain in the upper left area of your map. This is basically the lower Arkansas River mapping, and Pueblo Reservoir is just to the west of the city of Pueblo. The CANAL is well downriver of Pueblo, but the CANAL has water stored in the Pueblo Reservoir. Now, this becomes a plumbing problem. CANAL has to transfer that water to the Pueblo Reservoir, and then it has to get north 50-odd miles to Fountain. And that comes on the Fountain Valley Pipeline that was built as part of the Frying Pan, Arkansas system. The Fountain Valley Pipeline takes the water through 3 pumping stations up to Fountain, where the Fountain Valley Treatment Facility is. That is really the crux to this matter. In addition to having a willing lessor and a willing lessee arriving at a price that both agree upon, you also have to have the plumbing to get it there. So it was good for us that we didn't count on this in the formative years, because it was a lot of work for Lower to get the bill passed so that it actually worked. The delivery happens now, and we are notified when water is available to us in the Pueblo Reservoir. We pump it up through the Fountain Valley Pipeline, and the first year we took delivery on that was 2015. This is the city of Fountain in the gold area, and the very south end of the city is where the Fountain Valley Authority treatment plant is, pumps the raw water from the Pueblo Reservoir up to the Fountain Valley Authority treatment plant. We take our delivery at both the Southfield tank, the Southwest tank, and the Goldfield tank, and you can see the Venatucci wells to the north of the city of Fountain, and that water has proved to be very good for us, that we can work with the CANAL farmers for the water that in their surplus years. It's very important to the city of Fountain because in 2016 there were some trace contaminants that were discovered in our groundwater, including the Venatucci wells, that were perfluorinated compounds. It's gotten a lot of press, and so as a result of it, the city of Fountain shut down all of our wells, including the Venatucci wells, and loaded completely on our supply from water from the Pueblo Reservoir. The surface water from the Pueblo Reservoir was not contaminated with these perfluorinated compounds. So this extra up to 500 acre-feet per year seemed a little pricey when we first negotiated it, but it came in really handy when we needed water in the peaking times. We've since added 2 treatment plants that do treat for the perfluorinated compounds, but we do maintain our participation in the super ditch with that. A couple of questions remain, like, will this project go beyond the 10-year pilot period that's authorized by House Bill 13-1248. We have an offer sheet to the Lower Arkansas Water Conservancy District to continue this on a lease basis for 40 years. We'll see where that goes. It's currently in negotiations. Fountain hopes to continue the supplier-consumer relationship well into the future. Can the water obtained through these transfers translate into a reliable enough method that the water utilities can count on this as firm yield? Well, there's a lot of discussion on what firm yield really means. And it is a level of redundancy. Fountain is dependent upon the Fountain Valley Authority, upon the Southern Delivery System for our surface water. We have some of these alluvial wells that require expensive treatment to pull these trace contaminants out. So we do need to have a varied water portfolio. Both of these projects have helped us attain that varied water portfolio. So Phil, I'm going to turn this back to you for any tie-ups or any questions. Thank you for letting Fountain tell our story about how we've done some of these alternative transfer mechanisms.
Thanks, Mike. So I had a couple questions. Based on what you described, it sounds like it's going to be in the interest of Fountain long-term to kind of look at having an all-of-the-above approach to securing water for the future. You indicated that you have an offer to the Catlin Canal or Super Ditch company to continue leasing long-term. I'm wondering if that is something that you found there's interest in expanding upon beyond the 500 acre-feet per year, or is that kind of the number that seems to work for everybody?
So that's currently under negotiation, but it goes beyond just the 500 maximum acre-feet per year that was in the pilot. That was kind of chosen at random. So now we've introduced potential increase in that, increasing over time. And that's currently under negotiation.
So, Mike, you had mentioned that the Venatucci Farm land, I guess, is under a conservation easement. Is the water associated with that land also under a conservation easement?
There were 6 operable wells. Only 4 of the wells were used for the project, the municipal project. Only the water assigned to those 4 wells was changed from agricultural to municipal and industrial. The other 2 wells were sufficient to irrigate the balance of the remainder of the farm. The farm also has other income from a solar field that's on the farm, but it's relatively small now compared to when it was much larger, and over the years, the urbanization has encroached on it. So the water that we take out is not subject to that conservation easement. I don't know whether the water that is retained is subject to the conservation easement, but it still is water that is retained by the 2 wells that were not changed is still agricultural by decree.
Mm-hmm. So I know there was an ag water protection right that was passed back in 2016 that allows for some additional flexibility for ag water right holders as well as potentially municipalities who want to lease water from them. And I just wondered if that is something that is being looked at and explored down in the Arkansas River Basin as an additional way to both help sustain agriculture long term, but also provide that firm supply to municipalities.
I'm aware of that. We have not incorporated that into any offer sheets or anything like that, but we're not averse to it. As with Dawn, we'll talk with anyone. We recognize our obligation to serve, and we have taken firm stances in diversifying our water portfolio, we need to have drought protection. We need to have a lot of sources that when one is subject to dry up, when one is subject to quality concerns like the perfluorinated compounds, I've got to have enough water to fill the pipes regardless.
So there are certainly, I think, both of you guys have kind of have laid out some of the benefits and challenges to leasing, and you know that it probably comes from both sides. Communities need that firm yield. They've got to have reliable yield, and their ratepayers have to be able to turn on the taps and have liquid water come out. Farmers, of course, have some different interests. They need to grow a crop to make a living, and I just wonder: are there ongoing efforts to meet with farmers to get together to identify ways that long-term a sustainable pool of water can be provided that meets that criteria or that requirement that municipalities have for firm yield, but at the same time allows farmers to stay in business. Have you I guess continued to kind of reach out to farmers in that way, or is that something that has been kind of set on the back burner for now in favor of just purchasing water?
We have we're currently in discussions with several potential suppliers. What shape that takes is kind of amorphous now, but we've worked this one, and we feel that this one's a good model. As I said, it might be a little bit pricey, but when I had to shut down all my wells, it gives you a different perspective on what water costs. We're at the table. A really good place to speak with people is at the Arkansas Basin Roundtable, which I'll be there tomorrow. I'm there every month. So yeah, we're actively receptive, let's say.
Thanks, Mike. Dawn, did you have any comment there?
No, I was going to say kind of the same thing. You know, we don't have any active, as I mentioned, we don't go out and look for new water rights. It's just not been our methodology to do so at this point. But with the change in some of the bills and some of the things that people can do now with water rights, we've done some encouraging and had some discussions at ditch company meetings for agriculture interests and see if they might be willing to partner with Aurora. Most folks, though, it comes down to, who's going to pay for changing the rights and who's going to pay for coming up with all this engineering and taking charge of all the legal. And so it becomes one of those, it just sounds too burdensome type of ideas. But we're always open to discussing and coming up with some new ideas. We've had some, we're not in any active negotiations right now, but in the past we've had a few big ideas that have come to us, and we've tried to work through them, and we've run into roadblocks, and things have not worked out the way we had hoped with some of those big ideas. But we're always open to them, and it just, Mike mentioned, it's a very costly amount of water, but when his wells were shut down, it was worth it. Price is relative, right? So if the circumstances warrant it, you end up paying more in order to have that sustainable yield, and you end up paying more in order to find a long-term viable solution for the state of Colorado, not just for the people in your city, not just for the farmers, but for everybody all together to find ways to share that water and make it a better resource for everybody all around, which is why the rotational fallowing programs have a lot of merit. Just finding a long-term solution to that is the key to it.
And let me add too that some of our expenses paying a relatively high cost for the super ditch water was the fact that we were totally passive during all of the efforts that the super ditch employed to make this thing work. They pushed the bill through the House. They tried 3 times through water court. I mean, we were supportive, but not to the point of writing them a check until they were ready to start delivering water.
Okay. Well, I don't know if they have any more questions or not, but well, I really appreciate you guys taking your time to present today and to share with us what's going on down in your neck of the woods and specifics about the different projects you're involved with. I think it's been really enlightening, and it's kind of good to hear that municipal perspective from the ag side. So I want to say thanks to you guys, and then just a reminder that this program or this webinar is being recorded, and so we will have that posted on the agwaternetwork.org website. So again, thanks to Don Jewell of Aurora and Mike Fink of Fountain for sharing those insights. And this concludes today's webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you.